You have the right to remain silent, but we'd prefer if you didn't.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
This is Malzberg's
Spinning the law.
Spinning the Law.
Spinning the law, spinning the law.
With attorney Kendall Coffey.
Yes, indeed, do. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. One of our favorite times of the week as we go spinning the law. I thought that was going to be like throughout the whole interview. We'd have that that music. Do we have Mr. Coffey, sir? Mr. Coffey. No pun intended. Okay, as soon as we get him, we will bring him to you, and we're going to talk about some interesting cases. In one case, remember the pillowcase rapist? The pillowcase rapist. Christopher Hubbard terrorized much of the state of California back in the 70s and 80s, convicted of raping 38 women during that time. And this is all in the Los Angeles and the Bay Area, including on the Monroe Middle School campus in San Jose. And last week, a judge ruled that this man can reside in a northern Los Angeles County community when he's released from a state hospital. He's going to live amongst families in the general population. A man who raped 38 women. How could he ever get out of prison? How? Well, that'll be the first question that I asked to Kendall Coffey. Then we have another case, if you remember, down in Florida, the woman who fired the shot through the ceiling or through the wall. She was serving 20 years in prison. The same prosecutor who decided to prosecute George Zimmerman for second-degree murder prosecuted this woman, an African-American woman, never did anything against the law. She fired a shot into a wall during a fight with her husband. She will get a new trial in March and can argue next week to be released on bail. It's Marissa Alexander. So that's another case we'll talk about with Kendall. And Texas appealing after a federal ruling on the state's new abortion law, ruled that part of the abortion law is unconstitutional. And it's an odd part to me that they ruled unconstitutional. We'll talk about that. Also, the NFL. Can the NFL office be a non-profit organization? How on earth does a entity, a multi-billion-dollar entity like the NFL, have its office registered as a non-profit? I don't get that. I don't understand that. But maybe Kendall Coffey could explain it to us. Hello, Kendall Coffey.
How are you? And happy Halloween, Steve.
Happy Halloween. Are you wearing a costume, or are you going trick-or-treating? Or what is a big-time, one of the most famous attorneys in the world, what do they do on Halloween? Give out candy or what?
I'm giving out candy. The wife and I are giving out candy. We're both going to have a tape. We won't be too scary, but, and who knows? Afterwards, we may go looking for our own tricks or treats.
I don't want to go there, but that's okay. I also didn't want to sound funny asking you if you're wearing a costume. So we'll move on. But, all right, so let's get to this very serious matter. I mean, I know if I was living in the area where this man was being released to, I would freak. And I don't understand how this is possible. But the pillowcase rapist, who before you came on, I informed the folks, convicted of raping 38 women during the 70s and 80s in California, and he's getting out, and he's going to be able to move into a community of people, families.
Well, it's stunning. It's not a lot of consolation to the people in those communities, but in the 90s, the laws changed dramatically in a lot of respects. 3 strikes, you're out. A lot of protections put in for victims, but back in the 70s or 80s, it was a different era, and victims had much less protection. And, of course, this guy was sentenced under the old laws. And now, why he's being allowed back in heavily populated communities, family communities, that's mystifying. There've got to be some desolate, bleak areas somewhere in the country, maybe where it's very, very cold and people are much less at risk to others that some judge could have found for him. But you can certainly understand why with this horrible career, and by the way, with somebody's convicted 38 times, Lord only knows how many times they committed the crime.
Right, and he was arrested several times and released while he was doing all this stuff, too. Yeah,
and again, why it's being reported that officials have deemed him safe. I don't know how that's possible.
That's what I'm saying,
anyway, it's stunning. I'm sure for some it's terrifying. The only consolation is that this kind of thing is hopefully rare, and that modern laws wouldn't allow a guy like this to be out except coming out of prison in a wooden box.
Yeah, well, they are appealing it. The district attorney out there in L.A. County is going to file a formal complaint with the judge, and the public has until the end of November to submit written complaints, but I don't know what that's going to do. All right. I sent you this late, but we've talked about this, and it appears that, it's true, that the Florida woman, Marissa Alexander, who fired a shot into the wall during an argument with her husband and was tried and prosecuted and sentenced to a mandatory 20-year sentence in jail, although she had no criminal record, by the same overzealous prosecutor who charged George Zimmerman with second-degree murder down in Florida. She's getting a new trial, and she is going to argue to be released pending that new trial next week.
Yeah, and having gone through it, I think the appellate court did find some significant issues with the trial. No one said she's innocent. There are two sides of the story. There's a very sympathetic side, which the defense has presented. There's a very different side that, of course, the alleged victim testified about, and the jury believed the alleged victim. But I think looking at this one, a new trial seems to be the right decision, Steve. And there's also got to be some examination of whether this case was overcharged to begin with. I don't think anybody observing it, not even the alleged victim, thought that a 20-year minimum sentence was a fair sentence. No one was hurt. Discharging a firearm is certainly something that has serious consequences. But 20 years seem to be too much, and a fair trial seems to be a fair and new trial seems to be the right direction for this to go.
We're talking to Kendall Coffey here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Spinning the Law. Of course, Kendall, the author of a great book called Spinning the Law, which you should definitely check out. All right, let's move down to Texas. And Texas officials are appealing a decision that was made Monday by a federal court. A district judge saying that a provision in the strict abortion or anti-abortion bill, I should say, in Texas violates the rights of abortion doctors to do what they think is best for their patients and would unreasonably restrict a woman's access to abortion clinics. I think the judge was objecting to the part that said that doctors have to be affiliated with a hospital in order to perform the abortions. Do I have that right?
Well, that is definitely one of the issues, that the term that advocates of the law would say was abortion doctors had to be admitted with privileges in a nearby hospital within 30 miles. And as you know, one of the things that establishes credentials for a doctor is to be granted privileges to practice at a local hospital. That's not automatically done. It's not lightly done. It's not as easy, frankly, as getting admitted to the State Bar Association. It's a significant validation of your professionalism and ability to be granted privileges to practice in a hospital. And apparently a number of the doctors that perform this kind of procedure don't have those privileges within 30 miles. The Texas legislature has said that it's a requirement. And the judge, following what is the law as of today, presumably made the right decision under existing law. But advocates of these kind of laws, they're not simply trying to thumb their nose at the U.S. Constitution. They have a very thoughtful strategy for picking particular issues. Constitution. They have a very thoughtful strategy for picking particular issues. Definitely going to be some thoughts about chipping away at some of the existing precedents. So this is part of a long-term legal strategy that no one should dismiss. The outcome of this particular issue at the lower court level is not surprising, but what's going to happen when it someday, as this one very well might, gets to Washington and the 9 Supreme Court justices look at it much, much harder to predict.
Yeah. All right, Kendall. Let me ask you about this. I don't understand as a sports fan or someone who's covered it for many years. I had no idea, and I don't know if this is typical of other sports, but I would doubt it. The NFL headquarters on Park Avenue, where the league is run out of, where their official offices are, and all that kind of stuff. It's classified. It has status as a nonprofit. Now, the league isn't nonprofit. The billions of dollars they take in is not nonprofit. The equipment the uniforms they sell, the jerseys, the paraphernalia, that's not nonprofit. So how does the office of the league that runs this huge, unbelievable, multi-billion-dollar successful business, how do they make that office nonprofit, and really, why would they want to?
Well, there's no consistency here. I mean, apparently the National Basketball Association does not have a tax exemption. It's being reported that the National Hockey League Association does have a similar kind of IRS exemption. But the explanation is going to be, look, when you're talking the billions of dollars, it goes overwhelmingly to the teams. The team owners pay taxes. They don't have any kind of exemption. And that a mere trade association office, your local office, you're a chamber of commerce, you're a business development, or your local office that's advocating for doctors. Typically, those kind of organizations are not taxable for-profit companies. What's a little different here is that the NFL is not, a football organization. In the sense that anybody who's involved in football, it's for them. It's like a public interest for a football thing. To the contrary, it's really the hub of private ownership, and so this is getting a lot of attention. Do stockholders get paid dividends from the NFL profits? No, but if it's generating $255 million in revenue, and for example, the commissioner of the NFL is reportedly getting paid, almost $30 million. Yeah. There's a lot of money splashing around somewhere, and maybe all of us who don't really love paying taxes would like to see some of them pay taxes. So I think some members of Congress are going to look at this. Yeah, it's baseball always has that antitrust exemption, which has always been bizarre to me, and now to find out, I didn't know that about the NHL. Thanks for doing the research on that. But this just seemed I couldn't believe what I was seeing or hearing. Anyway. Kendall, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you very much. Enjoy the giving out of the candy and your own little escapades of trick-or-treating with your lovely wife. Okay, thanks a lot, and have a great evening.
All right, you too, Kendall. Take care. Kendall Coffey, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that's bizarre. That is really bizarre. The NFL, there are 32 teams which collectively pay more than $250 million in annual membership dues. And it's a nonprofit? The whole thing is bizarre. And the NHL, they are much smaller in scope, financially speaking, but nonetheless, they should be taken to task, too. Come on, raise your hands. I said taken to task. They love when I say that. All right, folks, we're coming back. And when we come back, we're going to be joined by Jennifer Rubin of the Washington Post right here on the Steve Malzberg Show on Newsmax TV and radio.